I lay still while the fMRI machine drummed around me. It was unsettling because I had to lie back with my head poked into a small hole in a large machine. The issue was the hole looked like a mouth. It was also difficult to forget that the unit generated through magnetic force to pull a pin clean through my body. I was glad I had thought of this. If things progressed like I planned, it would soon be difficult to MRI myself non-fatally. The whoop 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 was comfortably rhythmic. That's good, Jason's disembodied voice said. No regrets. Something you wish you could change. An uncle of mine died from colon cancer. I was 12. I remember thinking how ridiculous it was, a failure in one small body part being fatal. I didn't understand why they couldn't give him a new colon. Sorry, I'm not seeing much. Can you try it again? Something more emotional? Well, once in junior high, I didn't go to a school dance because I thought nobody would want to go with me. Then afterward, I heard this girl I liked would have. Isabella. She had been good at chess, always underdeveloped her looks, though. Still not definitive. I almost said, let's skip regret, because really, how important was that? It was a social emotion. Group survival was maximized if all members felt an emotional obligation to treat one another fairly. But you personally wanted to be able to cheat and steal without remorse. I'm not saying that's a great set of values, I'm just saying logically. I fell out of a tree as a kid. I said I cut my leg open and had to get stitches. It left a scar, a little white line. Now it's gone and I kind of miss it. It was a physical connection to my past, not an important part, but still. I'm disconnected in a way I didn't anticipate. My body maps space to time. It has an embedded history. Jason was silent. Of course, human tissue completely regenerates every 7 years. It's unlikely that scar was composed of the same molecules. Do you think it's really appropriate to consider people to be the same entity they are when they're 7 years earlier? Because physically they're not. They're connected, but every part has changed, like a renovated house. It seems like after 7 years, you shouldn't be liable for things you did before. Why should a man be in prison for a crime he committed by a different physical entity? Should we expect a couple to stay married when they rarely share a molecule with the people who said I do? I don't think so. I know that it's not that simple, but that's my feeling. Silence. I had wandered off topic. I think that's as close as we're going to get, Jason said. Let's try logging. There, Jason pointed to his monitor. We had been mapping my brain for 6 hours. In the darkened observation room, his eyes were pits. Activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, highly localized. I looked up from wiring myself into the contours. It was the first time I had done this in a while, but it hurt. Not in a completely bad way. That's guilt? Yes, Jason paged down. According to Krajvik et al., patients with damage to the VMPFC are quantifiably less sensitive to guilt. Regular people have a guilt quotient of 200, but VMPFC impaired people average 27. That means they feel an amount of guilt that's negligible compared to the norm. I activated the contours. Sensation spread down my metal legs. I wouldn't say it was worth losing both legs just for this, but it was a good feeling. Interesting. On every other measurable emotion, the two groups scored the same. Oh wait, he peered at the screen. Envy's up. Envy? Actually, that's within the margin of error, probably meaningless. So if my VMPFC were suppressed, I'd feel less guilt, but otherwise be the same. A lot less guilt. Right, a lot less guilt. And or regret. They both lit up the VMPFC. I pondered this. Is there a difference between guilt and regret? Jason stared blankly. I don't think so. I guess one is. I shook my head, lost it. Emotions aren't really my area of expertise. Let's assume they're the same. Okay, he looked at the screen. I'm not sure how you'd suppress the VMPFC, though. I mean, without actually cutting it out. An awkward silence descended. I had crushed my right leg in front of Jason. He had tried to stop me. Then I crushed my hand in front of him. He probably had unresolved feelings. I guess that would be kind of drastic, kind of irreversible. Although I wouldn't regret it, this was a joke. Jason stared at me. Because of the lack of a functioning ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Oh, yes, I tried again. It's what people aspire to, isn't it? A life lived without regret? That's a saying. But that doesn't mean that you should be bold, take risks, not surgically excise the capacity for regret from your brain. I said. I suppose so, yes. One thing that surprises me about this place, said Jason, no one ever says you shouldn't. As in, you shouldn't do that. They tell you something impossible or too expensive, but never wrong. And I know they're builders, not philosophers. I read the mission statement, but sometimes I wish we had some ethical documentation. I kind of want someone very wise to tell me there are some things I shouldn't do even though they can be done. Is that stupid? It's probably because my family, they're Chinese and growing up they were very strict, very moral. I fought them, but now I'm free, I'm floating. It's like I've lost my feet. Do you know what I mean? Not really. No? I don't worry about religion. It's not necessarily... Anyway, I said, because Jason was getting seriously off track. What about a helmet? Fixed needles, each capable of delivering a measured dose of tetrodotoxin to various areas of the brain. Press a button, bam, take out the VMPFC. I gestured to the screen, or whatever area needs suppressing for a few hours. And not just tetrodotoxin. Adenosine for alertness, any chemical primed for delivery to the right spot at the right time. That's interesting. I don't know there's a lot that could go wrong. It was a fair point. I needed my brain. It was one of the few parts I couldn't replace. I shouldn't rush in. On the other hand, injecting localized neurodoses of tetrodotoxin for guilt suppression was hardly a good idea. Let's just do one injection for testing. I'm not sure I should do that. Sure you should, I'm telling you to. Just position my hand in the right place and give me a little drill, I said, because my machine fingers were steadier anyway. I had never been very interested in hacking my head before. You would think so, but no, I had tried things, coffee, energy drinks, alcohol, caffeine pills, but I had never been enthused. As I watched the screen showing myself sliding a needle through my skull, I thought I understood why. Swallowing something gave control to the pill. Drug addicts were called users, and now I realized how appropriate that was. Pills made you a passenger. To control your own experience, you need to build it. You couldn't ever truly own anything you couldn't modify. I had always thought that. I retracted the needle. Jason taped a small cotton patch over the entry wound. It was on top of my head. When I straightened the contours, it should be invisible. He stepped back. Do you feel anything? I opened my mouth to say no, then realized maybe yes, because when I thought about Carl, that situation seemed pretty okay. Not great for Carl. It was a bad result for him, due to me. But those were just facts. They carried no emotional connotation. I nodded. Yes, I said. Good. I went to see Lola. Dawn was breaking, shedding soft yellow light along the corridor, and I had about 4 hours of near-zero capacity for guilt. When I knocked, she cracked open the door and squinted at me with sleepy eyes. Charlie? I know it's early. Can I come in? Yeah, she rubbed her hair. I thought it was out of control before. Overnight, I staged a full-scale rebellion. She swung open the door and I clumped inside. She was wearing an oversized yellow sweater with no visible pants. The sweater said, "Vision plus daring equals better future." Her legs were very beautiful. You had to give it to biology sometimes. I've been working. I wanted to see you. She dropped onto the sofa. That's nice. I looked around. What's the nurse? Lola's eyes widened. Charlie, you broke the pattern. I couldn't believe it. I had forced myself to stop thinking about how to get rid of the nurse because it was consuming my waking hours. Now she was gone. It was a miracle. Lola rose from my sofa. My heart thumped. Her hand closed on my shirt and pulled me closer. A delicious feeling shot through my body. I thought I should mount that for the helmet. She could turn up any moment, I said, Lola. She leaned upward. We kissed. We kissed before, but not like this. Not without external observation. I felt anxious because one thing the nurse had been good for was covering the fact that I was not a good kisser. I was enthusiastic. I was interested. But I had no technique. I was all over the place. I got hair in my mouth, and Lola put a hand on my cheek and guided me back to her lips. She did not seem upset or exasperated. She was prepared to tolerate mistakes. She had realistic expectations. I relaxed. I grew more confident. Lola pressed against me. I was doing this. It was some kind of Superman. I kissed her and her tongue touched my lips and gulped audibly, and she sniggered into my mouth. It was hotter than it sounds. Her hand found the back of my head and pushed me closer. I fell into her. She was a gravity well, an irresistible attractor. She took hold of my metal hand and guided it to her better future sweater, where daring rose and fell across one breast. I felt softness and warmth, and violet harmonics above 5 gigahertz. Not so hard, she whispered. I opened my eyes because I wasn't the one pressing there. She was, except she wasn't even touching my hand. I tried to pull my hand off her chest. It resisted, then came away. Lola's eyes popped open. Stop. Wait. I backed away. You're attracting me. It's mutual. Not like that. She looked confused. Then her eyes widened and she stepped back. As she did, I felt a slight release, as if I had been bracing myself against a force too subtle to notice until it was gone. Did you feel that? What is it? I'm not sure. Charlie? It's okay, I said, although I didn't know if that was true. There's something, maybe some kind of magnetic field. Field? Wait here. I need to get a scanner. It's my heart, she whispered, isn't it? I don't know. I'll find out. What did they put in me? Please, I said, don't cry, Lola, because I don't think I can come any closer without damaging one of us. She nodded. Please hurry. I exited on the ground floor and headed for the elevators to take me up to the lab. Halfway there, a young woman fell into step alongside me. This was no mean feat because I was really moving. I glanced down. It was Elaine, my ex-assistant who had nightmares. She was shorter than I remembered. No, I was taller. She clutched a clipboard to her chest. Her white coat flapped around her legs. Her acne had not improved. Dr. Newman, are you busy? Yes. We rounded a corner and passed the atrium. Inside, early rising suits strategized over bowls of muesli. I've been trying to reach you. I sent emails. I don't read emails. Well, she broke into a run. I've been following your work, and well, actually, I wasn't at first because I wanted to make a clean break because of the trauma. But you're using so many people, and everyone's talking about it, and I saw projects going into limited testing, and of course you can't get into them because everyone who knew has always already signed up for slots, and now the waiting list is month-long, and there's no way to get in, is there? We reached the elevator bank. I pressed down. I don't know what you're talking about. She came in front of me. I want to be a test subject for better skin. I tried not to look at the spots on her forehead, but couldn't help it. I don't actually select test subjects, but you could get me in. I'd follow protocol. I would be an extremely good test subject. I know you would, Elaine. At last the elevator arrived. I wash my face 8 times a day. I use aloe vera. I use methyl hydroxide. I sleep with a face mask. It wakes me up, but I use it. Please. I'll see what I can do. I entered the elevator and pressed for the labs. Elaine stayed where she was, her hands pressed together. Thanks, she said. Thank you. I swiped my way into Lab 5 and interrupted a bunch of lab assistants shaving off Mirka's hair. The floor was littered with dark filaments. In a bald head, Mirka's cat eyes looked enormous like a Japanese cartoon. We all stared at one another, and then I clumped across the lab and began searching for the hand scanner. Said Jason. I guess you're wondering what we're doing. No, half-dissected electronics lay over the workbench. Where's the scanner? There, the several cats said at once. I couldn't see where they meant until I followed their pointing fingers and shifted a schematic. A tiny part of it must have been poking out, too small for me to notice. A cat said, Why aren't you wearing your eyes, Dr. Newman? One of the assistants held a surgical drill, I noticed. That couldn't be good, but I didn't have time for this. Don't do anything stupid, I said, and left. I rode the elevator up to the ground, turning the scanner over in my hands. It was very basic with a narrow electromagnetic range, but that should be enough to tell what was happening inside Lola. Right now I couldn't imagine why her heart would start emitting a magnetic field. It was a pump. The elevator doors opened. For a second I expected Elaine. Can I have the skin? But the area was empty. It was very empty. I thumped along the corridor and past the atrium, and now its tables were empty. The muesli-eating suits vanished. When I reached the elevators for Building C and went to press call button, it was dark. All the panels above the elevators were blank but one which ticked downward from 18. I waited. When it opened, it had Cassandra Cottery in it. Charlie, we need to talk. Something's wrong with Lola. It's taken care of. Come here. I hesitated, then entered the elevator. Cassandra Cottery swiped her ID tag. The doors closed. We have a little situation. She touched her palms together as if praying, and put the fingers to her lips. It's all right. Everything is fine, but we do have a problem we need to deal with. Is her heart malfunctioning? Let me just say something on the table. The company has made a significant investment in Lola Shanks. That life-saving operation did not come cheap. This did not strike me as a very fair assessment, since the operation was life-saving only because she was shot by Carl. But I kept silent because I wanted to get to the part where Cassandra Cottery explained what was wrong with Lola. You can debate whether the right decision was made. I know I had concerns, but that was not my call. Her eyes flicked to the floor number sticking upward. I've always tried to do the right thing, Charlie. You understand that, don't you? I said nothing. Her tone sharpened. When you asked me to dispose of Carl, did I quibble? Did I say, gee, Charlie, that's a little heartless. He's a 10-year employee with no arms? No, I didn't. Fire? What? I asked you to fire Carl. You said get rid of. That's the same thing. She hesitated. Of course it is. The point is, I've tried to provide you with a supportive environment. I've sheltered you from the harsher realities. She stuck a thumb in her mouth and gnawed at it. Then she pulled it out and stared at it like I had betrayed her. No one appreciates the middle manager. Upstairs they've forgotten what it's like. They think you tell employees to do something and they do it. But that's not called telling, it's called managing. The only reason this company functions is because people like me keep them and you apart. The elevator doors opened. We were not on Lola's floor, we were somewhere else. But no, said Cassandra Cottery. You and Lola Shanks couldn't keep your hands off each other, and everything's gone to crap. I saw myself in a huge silver mirror hanging on the opposite wall. Beside it sat a little table with a lamp and a vase of white flowers. On the other side was a life-size statue of a woman with an outstretched arm and a blank eyes. Some kind of goddess. Cassandra Cottery exited the elevator. A beautiful girl appeared, smiling like a sunburst. Beside her, the goddess seemed plain. Hello, you must be Dr. Newman. And Cassandra, how are you? What is that shirt, by the way? I always mean to ask. I don't remember. Well, I love you in it. The girl put her hands on her hips. Is he ready? The girl turned solemn. It'll be 2 minutes. But if you come with me, I will get you completely set up with whatever you need. Is that okay? The girl sashayed away down the corridor. Cassandra Cottery stared after her with loathing. I felt out of my depth, like a deep-sea fish hauled to the surface. I was not compatible with this environment. I did not possess the parts necessary to survive in it. Where's Lola? Being looked after. Her voice was flat. She didn't look at me. You need to stay away from her, Charlie. At this point, you would do her more harm than good. She walked after the girl. I looked at the scanner in my hands. Then I put it on the carpet beside the elevator and followed. The girl took us to a sitting room. I say this as someone who is not totally sure what a sitting room is. I mean something from an 18th century mansion. Drapes, busy wallpaper, chairs with curving, detailed legs. Turned, I think is the word. I straightened my posture. It just felt necessary. You know who we're meeting, said Cassandra Cottery, once the girl had closed the door on us. This was not posed as a question, although I didn't know the answer. The manager. Which manager? The manager. Who? The manager. She said the manager. You know, the manager. That's his title? Cassandra Cottery stared at me. Of course not. He's the chief executive officer, but everyone calls him the manager. That's what he does. He manages. You know when Congress wanted to shut us down after the Boston BL-38s turned out to not so non-lethal? Of course you don't, because he managed it. How can you not know the manager? Now she mentioned it, the manager did sound familiar. He might have been signed off a few company-wide emails that I skimmed through. There might have been a few inspirational quotes from on the cafeteria notice board. When people told stories about employees who vanished, projects that evaporated overnight, the lab fires that were never officially reported, and accidents that never happened, they might have said, then the manager came. The manager. Exactly. Her thumb slipped into her mouth again. The manager. The door handle clacked open. I was disappointed. The way Cassandra Cottery had been acting, I expected lightning crackling around the shoulders of this tailored suit. And he was in a suit, and I guess it was tailored, but otherwise he looked normal. If I had been buying a car and this guy walked out of the sales room, I would not have been surprised. Dr. Newman. He came at me with his hands outstretched and his teeth exposed. His hair was extremely neat. I wouldn't have thought you could get hair to sit like that, not with consumer-grade chemicals. Can I get you anything? Water, coffee, something to eat? No, I shook his hand. This lasted a while, and he smiled the whole time. Now he looked at my legs. What's protocol here? Do I offer you a seat? I'm comfortable. Of course you are. You know that. Let's all stand. Cassandra Cottery, who had popped out of her chair when the manager walked in, was now in the process of lowering herself, arrested her descent. Okay with you, Cassie? Of course, she said. Cassie. I would never look at her the same again. The manager walked to the window and drew back the drapes. I squinted against the glare. I could barely make out his face. It's a thrill to meet you, Dr. Newman. I was sincerely disappointed it's taken so long. He did not look at Cassandra Cottery, but in my peripheral vision she tensed. This was some kind of silent manager-level communication. I've taken a personal interest in your project. We have our fingers in many pies, of course, a large number of speculative pies, but yours captures my imagination. So much of what we do, Dr. Newman, is about incremental improvement. It's about doing what we did the year before, only slightly better. Products that are a little lighter, a little cheaper, a little more reliable. You people in the labs, you come up with an incapacitating sound wave. It's like nothing everyone's ever seen. And the police departments don't want sound guns, they want tasers. In fact, they want the tasers they're used to, which have been through committee and achieved sign-off from relevant stakeholders, only a little lighter, cheaper, more reliable. So we take this wonderful innovation that comes from the labs and crush it down to incremental improvement, and I find that depressing. I really do. It's less than we all deserve. Sometimes when I drive into work, Dr. Newman, and I see the buildings coming toward me, I think, why aren't we doing more? Why aren't we changing the game? Why aren't we running the world? He chuckled. That's an expression, but you see my point. We have the brains, we have the production capacity, we have the network. Yet we are a mere company, an extremely well-respected company with an unparalleled history of technical achievement. We should all be proud of that, but we should also thrive to be more than just a company that builds what its customers want. What I've been thinking is, what if we could tell them? What if we could say, hey, you know what? You're getting an effing sound gun because it's seriously great technology, and you'll figure that out if you just take it. You'll get it over the sonic leakage and the reverb and bone damage and all that. Just take the effing gun. And I truly believe, Dr. Newman, if we do that, people will start to realize, hey, these guys at Better Future know what they're talking about. And if we don't need to figure out our own requirements, we don't need to write up a spec that says each taser should come with a strap exactly 28.1 inches long, and if it's 30, my God, there must be a half dozen meetings and phone calls, and maybe a whole order should be cancelled. They just sit down with us and ask, what can you give me? And we'll tell them. The manager put a hand on my shoulder. It felt fatherly. That's what excites me about your project. It's a game changer. We need a demand analysis on Better Eyes. We don't need to run around asking our customers what kind of quality of better skin they might consider under what specs. These products are self-marketing. They put us in the driver's seat, and the best part, Dr. Newman, the terrific irony is that it happened because you changed our game. Did anybody ask you to do this? No. You took it upon yourself. I look at you, Dr. Newman. I see a man controlling his own destiny, a man who refuses to let others define him. Nature dealt you a hand, and you tossed it back. You said, I'll decide who I am. I'll choose the limit of my capabilities. I will not be what I was made, but what I make. I blinked. Yes, that's exactly. I wondered why Cassandra Cottery hadn't been so concerned about letting me talk to the manager. He was fantastic. He was just like me. I could not be prouder to count myself as one of your supporters. He smiled. I smiled back. Now let's talk super soldiers. The manager turned to the window and gazed into the distance. There was nothing out there but sky. I struggled to rearrange his last sentence so that it made sense. I thought, did he mean super soldier? The equipment carried by the average modern-day soldier weighs 150 pounds. He turned and spread his palms. The light flooding in behind him made this vaguely messianic. That's a standard, what do you call them, grunt. The specialist slug half out again. The primary limitation of today's soldier is simply he can't carry everything. War has become a load-bearing exercise, a logistics puzzle, and sure, tell me that it's never been any different. Tell me that throughout history battles have been won on the back of resource coordination. I'll agree with you, to a point. That point is when the gap between what's possible and what's practical to carry becomes a canyon, and that's what we have today. Imagine weight wasn't an issue. We'd have soldiers who run at 50 miles per hour, leap 20 feet in the air, the 50mm chain guns, shrug off enemy fire like it's rain, we'd have better soldiers. And let me tell you, Dr. Newman, as tickled as I am by the consumer-level products your people are producing, the better eyes and better skin and so forth, they're nothing compared to what we can do with the military. He held up a finger. Let me correct that. What we can do with the militaries. I won't bore you with business details, but there is a protocol for developing military products. The first step is you go to defense and say, hello, we're just letting you know, we're thinking about marketing a mobile combat exoskeleton, and they say thank you very much. There is a set of papers legally compelling every employee within a 100-foot radius of our building to be cleared through military intelligence, a 4-star general in the room whenever they utter a project's name, and so on. 10 years later, what they allow us to build a crippled, simplified version of the product we originally designed. They give us another set of papers saying how many units we produce, how much they'll pay us for each one, and how many years we'll serve in prison if we sell a single piece of related technology to another sovereign nation. And you know what? That sucks, Dr. Newman. That is what keeps us small. So this time, I wanted to try it another way. Try it in-house. And I'm not saying we'll sell those things to North Korea. I don't think anyone wants North Korea with an army of, unkillable better soldiers. But it's not a bad thing for that possibility to be out there. It's not a bad thing. If we go to DOD and say, whoops, mea culpa. Turns out some of our people went ahead and developed human war machines, and they were already on the ground in various poorly governed countries across the world. They'll rant and scream and threaten, of course, but then we'll do a deal on our terms because we'll have the tech. I said, I don't want to be a soldier. Cassandra Cottery smiled. The manager laughed. Of course you don't. Good God, Dr. Newman. Perish the thought. You're a thinker. You're the brain, said Cassandra Cottery. Exactly. Your role is hands-off. His eyes flicked to my middle hand. Excuse the expression. I mean, there's no need to put yourself through QA for every better part. We have people for that. Cassie must have talked you through this. The whole thing with Charlie, said Cassandra Cottery. I hope this doesn't offend you, Charlie, but the thing is he's an artist. He has that mentality. I've been extremely cautious about bothering Charlie with the practical applications of his work, because for him it's a personal project, very personal. That's what inspires him. The manager was silent. I'm not sure I understand. He's an employee, isn't he? Of course, but are you an employee, Dr. Newman? Yes. You're paid to perform work for a better future, correct? I hadn't checked my bank account for a very long time, but I assumed so, yes. Then I think we've established your role. He nodded. I understand there are at least half a dozen people now capable of original part design. You should be proud of the way you passed on our skills, Dr. Newman. No employee should be irreplaceable. I said, I want to make parts for myself. Let me tell you what I want, said the manager. I want you to assist our test subjects. Help them adapt to life with better parts. That's your specialty now, not design. Look at you. I'm booking for some hardcore surgery to become a better soldier. You're the guy I want to talk to. You're the guy I want by beside my bed when I wake up, telling me it's okay, it's great on the other side, it's better. I'm not saying this has been the problem, Cassie. I'm not blaming you for the issues we've had with test subjects. I'm just saying the last thing we need is better soldiers having psychotic breaks. I said, what test subjects? I looked at Cassandra Cottery, then back to the manager. You mean Carl? Dr. Newman, I can't believe you don't know this. You are not the only recipient of better parts. He glanced at Cassandra Cottery. Honestly, who else has, there's you, those in your department, and the volunteers. Which volunteers? I felt myself shaking. Does Lola Shanks have a better part? Of course. Well, that was an early one, before we had the volunteer program up and running. We had to make a leap of faith. I know you can appreciate that when you crushed your leg. Did you know how it would turn out? Did you know for sure you would even survive? No, but you did it because great achievements require great courage. And it was obvious from the beginning that it would be easier to recruit volunteers for some better parts than others. The eyes, the skin, sure they're lining up. But who wants a military-grade spine? Who wants a satellite-linked eardrum? Don't say you. We've been through that. The world is not full of Carl LaRussos. We will not stumble across a group of people eager to replace vital organs, so we seized the opportunity that presented itself. What's in Lola? My throat burned. All I could think about was her on the operating table, her hand limp and helpless, her heart. What is it? Well, he said something better. A jolt of rage burst through my body. I did not usually get angry. I never felt like this in my life, certainly at no point while connected to the nerve interface, painstakingly teaching the contours, the language of my electrical neural impulses. They had no idea what I was telling them. That's my explanation, anyway, for why my legs twitched, and I kicked the manager through the window. Earlier, I hadn't paid much attention to what floor we were on, but as I moved to the shattered window and pushed aside the flapping drapes, I realized we were really high up.